What's up, my friends, and welcome to the PHLY Phillies podcast, the PHLY Phillies Pregame Show today. And as always, all of our PHLY Phillies content is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. Sign up using the promo code PHLY365. Deposit just $10. Bet your first $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets, whether you win or lose over at Bet365. Quick one today, quick live show. Thought with our timing and, kind of was pulled in a whole bunch of different directions. So I apologize for this being an unscripted pregame show, if you will. But we figured with about 15 minutes until first pitch, I guess a little more than that. But we figured we'd do a live pregame show with you and hang out for the next 15 minutes or so as the Phillies and the Blue Jays get set for the rubber match of this series. 3:07 first pitch, because it can't be 3:05 or 3:10 or 3 o'clock flat. Of course, it's 3:07 is the scheduled first pitch time from Toronto. Jesus Luzardo gets the ball against Chris Bassett. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We've got some rotational news to discuss as the rotation seems to be a little bit in flux heading into the weekend series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. But before we get into today's game, let's take a look back at last night's game because there was some good, some bad, and a whole lot of fireworks at the end as the Blue Jays beat the Phillies 2-1 on a walk-off by Alejandro Kirk. It felt like it was going to be a home run at first. Figured it felt like it might be 3-1. Ends up being just a single because the run scores, so Kirk doesn't have to go any further, of course. But it ends up being a walk-off single for the Blue Jays. They win the game 2-1. They do it against their former closer, Jordan Romano, to rub salt into the wounds. The winning pitcher of yesterday's game, who wasn't particularly good either, but does get the win, is Jeff Hoffman. So I think it adds a little bit of insult to injury to the Phillies' loss yesterday with the fact that they lost in a walk-off. Jordan Romano took the loss, and Jeff Hoffman took the win. I think it's just a perfect storm of annoyance for Phillies fans, especially those that have claimed, have clamored for bullpen help or talked about Jeff Hoffman in the past, such as we have on this program. But I think the good of yesterday's game, once again, was Mick Abel. I thought Mick Abel was really good again yesterday. He goes 5 1/3, gives up just the one earned run. Just 2 strikeouts yesterday. He was pitching much more to contact yesterday than he did in his first start against the Pirates, but he only scatters 3 hits. And I think the most important thing for Mick Abel, as it was in the first game, his major league debut against the Pirates, as it was leading into yesterday's game, and talking about today after the second start, is the command. 0 walks again yesterday. He now has 0 walks through his first 11 1/3 innings pitched. He has a .79 ERA through his first 2 starts, just the 1 earned run over those 11 1/3 innings pitched. And the command, again, is the most important thing. It's a guy, we talked about it on yesterday's podcast. We talked about it prior to his first start. We talked about it after his first start. It's a guy who had a 1.8 whip in AAA last year and seemed to unlock something this season and unlock something at the beginning of the year. And it's carried over to both his last couple of starts in Lehigh Valley and the 2 starts that sandwiched those Lehigh Valley starts in the major leagues against the Pirates and now against the Blue Jays. The fastball command is the most important thing for Mick Abel this season so far. His fastball command has been so much better, and it allows him not only to work ahead, it allows him to utilize and mix in his other pitches to the point that he needs to. We talked about this on yesterday's stream as well, so I apologize if you were here yesterday as well. But the one thing that Mick Abel had struggled to do in the past when he was not able to set up the fastball for strikes, when he was falling behind 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-1, was that he had to work a lot back into the zone. And sometimes he wasn't even doing that, and it's why his walk rates were so high over the last couple of seasons. It's in part why his whip was so high, but the other part about the whip was when you have to work back into the zone, it doesn't matter how hard you throw, you're going to end up getting hit. Professional hitters can hit fastballs, especially as you get up into the AA, AAA, and of course at the major league level. You can get away with 98 up in the zone or 98 in the zone when you're pitching in Clearwater. You can get away at 98 up in the zone when you're pitching in the rookie leagues and the developmental leagues. You can do it in high school. You can do it in college. You could do it in, whatever league prior to that. You start getting up to Reading, you start getting up to Lehigh Valley, and certainly you do it at the major leagues. Guys are just too good. Their hands are too quick. They're too good of hitters. They're going to take advantage when you throw 97, 98, middle in that nitro zone, if you will. What Mick Abel's been able to do over the first couple of starts is work the outer edges. He's thrown his fastball successfully to both lefties and righties. He's burning it off the outer edge to righties. He's been able to throw it in on the hands a little bit to lefties. He's worked the outer edge to lefties as well. He's mixing in both the sinker and the four-seam fastball well, and you saw it again last night. And now I will say this. Last night, Mick Abel got hit hard a lot. He gave up a lot of hard contact. In fact, 11 balls were hit at 95 miles an hour or more. But sometimes in the ebbs and flows of a season, balls that get hit hard end up resulting in outs. I am a huge proponent of, hey, if a guy hits a ball 390 feet left of the left field foul pole or right of the right field foul pole, you know what it is? It's a long strike. And sometimes that you have to play in that mindset. Not for Mick Abel, but I think more so for guys that don't throw hard, guys that don't have blow you away fastball or crazy breaking ball. You have to live in the mindset of, hey, if you just hit that 380, but you yanked it to the left of the foul pole, it's just a long strike. And the same could be said, and maybe even more so, when a guy hits a ball hard and it's a screaming line drive right at the shortstop, or it's hitting the gap, but your center fielder makes a nice play and tracks it down, that's an out. And so, yeah, the Blue Jays had a lot of hard contact yesterday. And of the 11 balls that were hit at 95 miles an hour or more, they were 2 for 11. And on the 6 hardest balls that the Blue Jays hit all day, they hit 4 at 103 or more, and they hit 6 at over 100 miles an hour. On those 6 hard hit balls, they were 0 for 6. Vladimir Guerrero hit a liner, and I believe this was the one that he hit right at Bryce Harper. No, excuse me, it was hit right at Johan. Who was that in center field? Was it Brandon Marsh? It was hit at Brandon Marsh yesterday. Almost 110 miles an hour. Had an expected batting average of 720. Was an out. Expected batting averages on those 6 of 610, 670, and 430, and then a couple of smaller ones sprinkled in, but they were all outs. And sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good as a major league pitcher, especially as a young major league pitcher making his second career MLB start. Yeah, he gave up a lot of hard contact yesterday, but it didn't materialize into anything more than outs. And so Mick Abel, again, showed that he was mixing his pitches well. Location was good. And I thought he threw a couple of curveballs, especially to left-handed hitters, where he spun them perfectly off of the left-handed hitter's back foot. And you know how big of a proponent I have been of back foot breaking balls. Lefties who can throw sliders to righties' back foot, righties who can throw breaking balls to lefties' back foot. Those guys stay around in the major leagues, especially when they're spotting their fastball. I talk about Jesus Luzardo doing that all the time. I talk about Jose Alvarado prior to the suspension. That was one of the big keys to me, was when he was spotting that cutter off of right-handed hitters' back foot. To me, that is utterly important to the success of a major league pitcher. And through the first 2 starts, I think Mick Abel's done a really nice job. And I think at this point, if he continues, I'm not going to say he's going to give you, a 0.7 ERA or 0.8 ERA throughout the rest of the season. But if he can give you quality appearances, he's going to give the Phillies something to think about. I think he's going to at least make another start in the rotation due to the fact that they've moved Taijuan Walker to the bullpen. Zach Wheeler, and the news of Zach Wheeler is that he's not going to be available this weekend. Obviously, he is on paternity leave. He and his spouse are awaiting the birth of their child. So, of course, congratulations to the Wheeler family. But Zach Wheeler is not going to be available this weekend. So I would imagine, come the next turn through the rotation, probably, what will it be, Tuesday? I think it'll be Tuesday of next week. Mick Abel probably is going to get another start. And whether that means that Zach Wheeler has returned to the rotation and another corresponding move gets made, or Zach Wheeler's just still not available, I think Mick Abel has earned himself another start in the Phillies rotation. Now you ask, what's the corresponding move if Zach Wheeler is available and Mick Abel does stay up? I think looking at the team that they have, the guys that are on the 26, the easiest move for the Phillies to make would be to send Max Lazar back down. I think that's probably the 1-for-1 move that they're going to make, is just send Lazar back down to AAA and Mick Abel's in the rotation, especially if they feel like Taijuan Walker is going to be in the bullpen long term. So that probably is the move that they're going to make. Speaking of Taijuan Walker, now that we know that Zach Wheeler is not going to be available this weekend, Matt Gelb put this out a couple of hours ago, is that they're going to go to a bullpen game tomorrow against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, who starts, again, and the Gelb follows up and says, depends on how today goes. The Phillies are going to be looking for some length out of Jesus Luzardo today. There's no question about it, because of the fact that, A, they're going to have a bullpen game tomorrow, and B, Luzardo had perhaps his worst start as a major leaguer his last time out. Saturday gave up 12 earned runs in an inning and 2/3. I know that Jesus Luzardo, more times than not, is a 5 or 6 inning guy. Throws a lot of pitches, really good stuff, but he racks up a pitch count pretty early in the game more times than not. High strikeout guy. I think they're going to probably they're not going to ask him to pitch outside of himself. That would be foolish. But I do think they're going to ask him to give them some length today. And that may mean, hey, dude, listen, we know you can produce 8, 9, 10 strikeouts in any given night. Maybe you pitch to contact a little bit more. I'd be interested to see early in the game if Jesus Luzardo changes his approach at all, knowing the fact that they're going to have to go to a bullpen game tomorrow, and knowing the fact that if everything works itself out to a way that they would hope, I would imagine their hope is that Taijuan Walker can start tomorrow's game. That's just me guessing. I don't know what their decision is going to be. Maybe they do an Orion Kirkering in the first and then give a bulk of the innings to Walker and Ross. I think you're going to see, of the 9 innings, Walker and Ross are going to be the guys that throw the most pitches, probably followed by Carlos Hernandez, probably followed by Max Lazar. Like, it depends on how the game unfolds, of course. If the Phillies it's a close ball game, they're going to piecemeal the thing together. If they're getting beat by a lot or they're winning by a lot, then that's where they'll turn to Lazar and Hernandez and things like that. But if you ask me right now who gets the start tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked if it's Taijuan Walker, just because he knows how to go through the regimen of being a starter. And he made a start his last time through the rotation, or 2 times ago through the rotation. So if everything goes according to plan for the Phillies today, I would expect perhaps them to announce that Taijuan Walker starts tomorrow. How many innings does he go? I don't know. Maybe 3. If they can get him one time through the order, that would probably be super beneficial for them, because then you could say Joe Ross throws 2, then you get an inning from Strahm, an inning from Kirkering, an inning from Romano, and now you're getting closer and closer to piecing that 9 innings together. But that's tomorrow's issue. Let's talk about today's game. As I said, Jesus Luzardo gets the start for the Phillies. I'm not going to talk too much about Luzardo today, because I think that the expectation for me is that he bounces back. I really don't anticipate any kind of hangover from Saturday's game. He's been excellent all year. Saturday was dreadful. There's no 2 ways to put it. Like, it was one of his worst starts of his career, if not his worst start of his career. He was bad. The Phillies were bad. Everything was bad. Rob Thompson got ejected. It was a crap game. Like, there's no other way to put it other than it was just one of those games where you get your butt kicked and you move on from it. And I think Jesus Luzardo will move on from it. He joked about it's why he has the cornrows now, because he needed to change up his mantra. He needed to change up his like juju, if you will, right? Like, so he's feeling like he's in good spirits. Obviously, he knows it was a bad start. JT Realmuto said, as soon as you leave that mound, this game is over, type of thing. They all understand it was one bad start. I expect a good return to form from Jesus Luzardo. But I did want to highlight today the starter that the Phillies are going to face, because it's veteran Chris Bassitt. And Bassett's one of those dudes who you watch him throw, and it's like, all right, this stuff's not great. Doesn't throw hard. And then you look up and he blanked you for 6 innings. And you go, how did that just happen? I don't understand how this just happened. And the reason that Chris Bassitt has success is because he's been around in this league for long enough. He knows how to pitch. He can work you backwards. He mixes pitches well. He's thrown 7 different pitches this year. Now, one of them he's thrown like 3 or 4 times. So the reality is he has a 6-pitch mix, but it's a very legitimate 6-pitch mix for Chris Bassitt. He throws a sinker, a cutter, a curveball, a splitter, a 4-seam, a sweeper, and a slider. And he's used all of them in games this year so far. He's just one of those dudes who has been around forever, doesn't have the best stuff, doesn't have the best velocity, but just knows how to pitch. And he goes out there and takes the ball every fifth day. And like, you kind of know what you're going to get from Bassitt. He's the type of guy who averages about 5 or 6 innings per start. He's 5-3 this year with a 3.80 ERA. And he has a tendency to be the type of pitcher who gives up a lot of hits and then thrives in working out of jams. So far this year, Chris Bassitt's given up 75 hits. That's tied for 6th most in baseball and is tied for the 2nd most in the American League, tied with Michael Lorenzen. There's not a handful of starters, not a handful of pitchers that have given up more hits than Chris Bassitt had this season. And to that point, he's actually given up 7 hits or more in 8 of his 12 starts this year. And he's only given up less than 5 3 times this year. But here's where he gets good. He's faced 69 batters with runners in scoring position this season and only given up 12 hits. He has a .87 whip in those situations with runners in scoring position. So he's the type of guy who's going to look for contact early. He's going to try to get you out on the first 2 or 3 pitches. And if you get a base hit off of him early in an at bat or early in a sequence or early in an inning, he's not too concerned about it because he feels like he can battle back. And that's where he kind of battles in and starts to mix his pitches well and change speeds and throw strikes. He's faced a lot of left-handed hitters this season so far, which is something he'll see today. He'll see Bryson Stott, and I probably should have had the lineup out. I apologize, but I imagine it's going to be Bryson Stott at the top of the lineup, which it is. It's Harper at 3, it's Schwarber at 4, it's Kepler at 7, it's Marsh at 8, and Marchand at 9 is going to hit left-handed. So he's going to face 6 lefties today, as kind of expected, right? And he's faced a lot of lefties this season, so he's no stranger to it, and he's faced a lot of lefties throughout his career. So Chris Bassitt's one of the type of guys where the Phillies are going to do one of 2 things today. And I firmly believe there's going to be no in between. They're either going to tag him for 5 runs today, or he's going to throw 5 shutout innings. And I don't think there's any in between. And maybe that's it's indicative of the Phillies offense just as much as it is of Chris Bassitt. But I think one of 2 things happen, and he either gets rocked, or you look up, and as I said, he gave you 6 shutout innings, and you go, where the bleep did that come from? Because the stuff doesn't look good, and he doesn't throw all that hard, but he's just a pro's pro type of pitcher. So he's faced the Phillies, guys on this 26-man roster, 131 at-bats over his career. There's no secrets, right? They know it. Nick Castellanos has faced him the most. He has 31 of those 131 at-bats, but there are 6 different Phillies who have at least 10 at-bats against Chris Bassitt over the course of his career. The team collectively is hitting .267 against him, so they've had some success against Bassitt. But again, I think this is one of those situations where he's either going to get shelled or he's going to give you 6 shutout innings, and I'm not sure there's any in between. All right, we're just about set to get you to turn things over to the game today. So wherever you're enjoying it, whether you're watching it on NBC Sports Philadelphia or you're listening on the radio, enjoy the game today. Nice early game for all of us. We'll be done all of our coverage by about 6 o'clock or so. Enjoy the game today. We'll be back live with you tomorrow for the next installment of the PHLY Phillies podcast, live at 1 o'clock tomorrow. We'll talk to Jake Starr from the Reading Fightin' Phils, who will give us a more in-depth minor league report. We'll talk about this series. We'll get you set for the Pirates series. We'll do all of that at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So head on over to the PHLY Sixers podcast, which is live now. I'm sure the PHLY Eagles pod just wrapped up as well. If not, they may still be going. But big thanks to everybody who hung out with us today. K-Red, what's up? Thank you for joining us later in the show as well. I appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock for the PHLY Phillies podcast. And as always, all of our PHLY Phillies content is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Enjoy the Phils and the Blue Jays set to start in just about 2 minutes. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 1 o'clock on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.